what surprises me as an academic coach is inability of many students to manage their time effectively and plan ahead. The simple reason for it, in my opinion, is that most students don't actually use paper planners or electronic calendars. Funnily enough, when I ask my students and I start working and coaching them and I'm saying like, okay, so here is your task for next week, and I see them not writing it down or noting it down, I'm like, you sure you're going to remember it? Oh yeah, no worries, I'm going to remember it in my head. The irony of it, right? Because as adults, we know that if we don't write something down straight away or note it in our calendar, we are likely to forget it. The reason for that is that simply our brain's short-term memory is not meant to keep this information. It's not very important. It's something that can be delegated and written down, and then we don't need to remember it and not taking up our resources. So it's much better to have a proper system where you write your to-do list and keep the track of your events. And this is what I teach to my students when they start coaching sessions with me. So in this video, I'm going to share my system that I teach to my students to basically teach them the time management that they need for their future university studies and for their future employment. Before we get into my system, the only thing I ask in return is please press the like and subscribe buttons for my channel. It really helps the growth. And please do get in touch with me for a free consultation as a parent or as an educator if you're interested in really helping your child to improve their grades and their academic journey. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into my time management system and what I teach to my students, let's just look at why actually there has been this massive decline in the time management skills in the modern students. Obviously, it doesn't include all the students, but I do find through my work that it's actually majority of the students. So in my opinion, actually, there has been a massive decrease due to the schools introducing different apps for the homeworks. So let me give you an example. When I was a student, let's say about 12, 13 years ago, I remember my school giving us paper planners, and so the responsibility was on a student to write their timetable out and write all the homeworks and tasks that are given by a teacher to a student during the lesson. Right, so then it's my job to manage my own time and decide how can I allocate the time. Now, the way the majority of the schools work here in the UK is obviously there is a lot of new technology that is involved. There are these apps for homeworks which the teachers are supposed to use to upload the homework task. So it doesn't matter what teacher says during the lesson, because if then the teacher forgets to upload the homework or decides not to and says, okay, well, but I've given you the task. Funnily enough, the students tend to use this as an excuse for not doing the homework. They'll be like, well, so miss, like, you haven't written the homework down. Yes, you might have said something in a class, but that means that if it's not on this app, I don't have to do it. And I've had such experiences as well. When I was a teacher as well, basically students would utilize that as an excuse. So let's just kind of rewind. So that means that it's another responsibility of a teacher to upload the tasks online, and then students basically don't have to write any tasks down. And then if it's not uploaded, they don't do the work. So that basically means that this system and the introduction of such apps have completely removed the autonomy for the students of actually time managing themselves. Because funnily enough, do you think the universities or the employers will then go and upload the tasks for you? No, you go to a meeting, it's your job to have a notebook in front of you and actually write things down, so then it's your responsibility to then do those tasks. You're not going to then be like to your employer or the boss being like, oh, well, you haven't uploaded them on the system, you haven't sent me an email. That's not how it works. So I personally think this is why there has been this shift, maybe within a decade or so, that students now basically they don't use electronic calendars or paper planners. If you think there's something else involved in this, then it would be great to hear your comments, so please drop me a message or write a comment below. Now, I want to teach you the system that I teach my students. Again, it's something that I use in my personal and business life, but I also teach the same system to my students, and it does work wonders because, again, when I work with my students, it's not just about teaching them the subject knowledge, it's actually preparing them for their future education at university and for employability. My system consists of two components. So, electronic calendar together with a paper notebook or paper planner. So number one, get your child or a student to choose an electronic platform of their choice for how they're going to keep track of the electronic calendar. This is important because obviously we live in a technology era where basically the students are always with their phones, and this is for my another video on social media and the screen time, so don't get me even started on this, but because we are so attached to our phones, it means that the calendar can be with us at least, okay? So I personally use an Apple Calendar, an iCalendar app. Some people can use Google Calendar as well. But what is great about it is then it allows you to add delete tasks straight away in the morning, basically check your task or even set the reminders if there are important events coming up so they don't forget about them. The second step is very important, is to actually create sub-calendars or categories within those calendars. And what is nice about those platforms, and I'm sure there are other many, so please do your own research, but what is nice about them is that each sub-calendar can have its own color, which makes it a bit very visual and very nice. So, for example, the categories I highly recommend for my students is saying, okay, school, which means the timetable, then private study, so any blocks of time that they're going to do their own study or maybe have extra coaching sessions outside of their school. Then another one could be sports or exercise. Another one is extracurricular or hobbies. And then maybe another one could be private or general, anything outside of that. Obviously, this can be changed. You can add as many calendars as you want, but basically these could be the core ones and you could add or delete them as you wish. But the whole point is, the important task is as soon as they add the school timetable, they can then see where the remainder of the time goes. So for example, if they're A-level students in particular, there'll be loads of free periods. So it's important to then say, okay, well, how am I going to utilize those blocks in advance? What are the tasks? You could even, I tell my students, you know, if you have a weekly overview, then plan your week ahead on a Sunday. Step number 3, get a paper planner for your student. What I find, if you use just an electronic calendar, it's very rigid. You can't really put to-do tasks on the iCalendar in particular. Maybe that's not the case on the Google, but I also like to write things down. So my paper planner is a simple dotted notebook. It's an A5 size, which is very useful because you can just carry it with yourself wherever you want and stuff like that. And I'm going to link this particular brand in the description box below because, you know, the quality of the paper is great, and I think you can buy 2 in the same set with different colors. Brilliant. So, but what I do is I check my electronic calendar in the morning, so I see what appointments and events I have throughout my day. I write them out again, but this is not necessary, it's just I like to do it. And then I actually say, okay, what are my main to-do tasks? What is the highlight of the day? What are the other important tasks? And anything that comes along the day, I basically write it down. And then I can always keep track and go back on it. So I just have a simple notebook where I basically, you know, dedicate a page a day, but this might be a little bit more complex for students. And I would just recommend a diary or a planner, like an academic one, where they can write their tasks down. Because with paper planners, you can have different varieties. You can have the daily or the weekly, or you could have the weekly with like a notes page on the side, which I quite enjoyed using as well before. And the whole point is, I always tell my students, anything important, even if I taught you like a new method or a new technique that you need to try out, like just basically it's an opportunity for you to write things down. Even you have an idea for your personal statement or anything like that, it's just important to note down. Because again, if we don't write things down, I'm a strong believer that it's very easy to forget them. With time, this system can be adapted. They can have the weekly overviews. They can then maybe have monthly overviews or even yearly overviews and being like, okay, what are the big deadlines? When are the exams? When are the applications for university? When are my tests? So it's important to kind of then plan ahead and have this system. And I do strongly believe even by using and doing these simple steps, frankly, you know, this can really change the way the students learn the information and how they study and how they manage their time. If you enjoyed this video, please again press the like and subscribe to my channel, recommend it to other educators and parents, and please do get in touch with me. I like hearing from my subscribers and other parents, and just share your experiences of how you've been finding teaching your children time management and whether they are organized or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.